Hey everybody, welcome back. Lar from Complete Test Success here, and we're doing a Q&A today. So Q&A for questions and answers. So what we're doing today, basically, if you have questions about the IELTS test, if you have questions about how to improve, questions about, if there's something you don't understand, if there are some problems you have and you don't know how to fix them, whatever it is that you're going through at the moment, just let me know your problems. Let me know what questions you have, and I'll be able to give you some advice. I'll be able to answer your questions for you. Pretty straightforward. That's what we're doing today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lar, and I've been teaching IELTS since 2010, and I've been an IELTS examiner for writing and speaking. So I have a lot of experience. I've been doing it a long time. Hasnain, hi to you. Welcome. You got in here good and early. Ulug Beg, welcome. Welcome to the lesson. Good to see you here. Okay, so that's basically it. I'll wait for your questions and then I will answer them. Pretty straightforward. I also, as well as these live streams every week, I also have lessons on Zoom for my subscribers. So if you'd like to join me for those, what you can do is just go to the video description and you'll find the link. You'll find the link there. Just click the link, sign up, and then you'll have the full schedule of what topics are covered in whichever in the various lessons, the times of the lessons, the dates of the lessons, and then the link, the Zoom link to click to join. So I'll show you here. You'll see this comment, live feedback lessons on Zoom, and again on Facebook. So if you find that comment, or if you just go to the video description, you can sign up for those lessons. XIX, good to see you here. You're back for more. Hi, Mohammed. Welcome to the lesson. Okay, so as I said, I'm just waiting on your questions and then I will be able to help you. Hi, Mohammed. Good to see you back here again. Welcome to the lesson. Sangharsh, hello to you. For those of you who are looking for one-on-one support, I have a few more places on my course at the moment. So I am available. If you need one-on-one support, just send me an email there, lara@completetestsuccess.com. So I'm not as busy as normal, so I have time to take on some more students if anyone needs one-on-one support. Sir, I need help. I want to improve my speaking, but I cannot, and my exam is on 3rd of February. Okay, so 3rd of February is this Saturday. Now, realistically, like if you want to improve your speaking score, you need to focus on, one area: fluency, vocab, grammar, or pronunciation. You have 4 days before your test. You're not going to make significant improvements to your vocabulary in 4 days. Like how many words can you learn in 4 days? Not that many. So I wouldn't recommend that. Your grammar, you might be able to make improvements if you know exactly, like you're always making mistakes with plurals. You might have enough time to work on some very specific area of grammar. Similarly with, pronunciation, if you pronounce perhaps the W sound, you pronounce it as V, which would be, very common mistake. If you're making that mistake, you might be able to improve that a little bit, but you're not going to make massive improvements in any areas in 4 days. Perhaps the best thing to do is just make yourself kind of comfortable with the process. Do some practice tests by yourself. Make sure you're fully developing your answers so that you're not giving short answers. That's a quick way to get a low score if you're giving short answers. Yeah, just get yourself more comfortable with the process and just working on your fluency and, maybe not worrying about mistakes, because in the IELTS speaking test, everybody's going to make mistakes. Everyone's going to make mistakes. It depends on your level. The number of mistakes you make and the severity of the mistakes you make will depend on your level. But whatever level you are, the best you're going to do is by just speaking naturally, allowing yourself to make the mistakes you normally make and not focusing on trying to get better during the test. You need to get better before the test. And when you're in the test, just try to be as natural and normal as possible. Don't try to give special informative answers. Just try to give normal chit chat answers. Like, what would you say if you were talking to a friend? The information in your answers isn't very important. It doesn't need to be correct. It doesn't need to be informative. It doesn't need to be interesting. You just say whatever you would normally say on the topic. So really, the best thing you could probably do in 4 days is focus on your fluency, focus on getting comfortable with the format of the test, and just get used to delivering longer answers, because as I said, short answers is kind of the quickest way to reduce your score. Hi, Oleg Beg. How to write better overview for writing task 1, because I have different versions but can't decide which one to choose. So I've broken overviews down. When we're talking about graphs, I've broken it down into 2 types of graph. So there's one type of graph where there'll be more than one point in time. So, you'll have category A was, 10% on Monday, 20% on Tuesday, 30% on Wednesday, 5% on Thursday. So like you can see the percentage change over time. So if it's showing you the changes over time, what we would call a dynamic chart, you can just say, compared to the very start and the very end, had it increased or decreased, when you're comparing the start and the end. And then the same for each category. So if it's over time, just say which categories increased, which categories decreased, as kind of the basics, the most basic fundamental description in your overview. You can include more information if it seems short, but in general, that will be enough. Then there are other graphs, which we call static graphs, and they're only based on one point in time. So, you'll have category A, B, C, and D, but only on Monday, just on one day. So you'll have the different percentages. So you're not comparing the categories over time. You're just comparing the categories against one another. And in that situation, for your overview, just say which one was highest and which one was lowest, or it might be, several different columns where you'd say, for column A was highest and C was lowest. For column B, so you're just comparing which ones were highest and lowest. And that would be the most fundamental information to include. So always include like the basics of which was highest and lowest if it's static, which ones increased and decreased if it was dynamic. And then sometimes just when you do that, it still seems quite short. And if that's the case, you can just add in extra points. But most importantly, don't include specific data. Don't include the exact percentages. So if you're saying A was the highest, that's fine. But if you say A was the highest with 26%, well, now you're getting a band 5. Including that specific detail with 26%, that's what brings your score right back down. It's as if you didn't write an overview. You'll instantly get a 5. So those are the kind of the basics for graphs. Those are the basic things you need to know for graphs. XIX, I've already got the score. I remember you were saying that last week, but I will ask a question just to help my colleagues. Absolutely, go ahead. I'm happy to answer your questions, no problem. How can I score band 9 in writing module? So Kazi, the first thing you would need to do is improve your English to the level where you are pretty much unrecognizable as speaking English as a second language, that people would just think that it's your first language. If your first language is better than English, then you're not a band 9 level. So you would need to be as good as you are at speaking your first language, all the vocab, you have everything you would ever need and more. Your grammar is always perfect. Your pronunciation is completely accurate all the time. You can still have an accent, like, especially with English, it's spoken in so many countries and there are so many variations of the accent. So it doesn't mean you cannot have an accent, but the pronunciation needs to be completely accurate all the time. And that would be the biggest challenge, like improving your English to the level that you are just as good as you are with your first language. And then after that, you're pretty much following the same thing as everyone else. Just make sure that your ideas are relevant and specific in writing. Make sure you're developing them appropriately, but once you get the vocab and grammar down, that would be the biggest challenge to getting a band 9 in writing. Once you have the ability to get such a high score in vocab and grammar, the other things will kind of fall into place more easily. Sangharsh, sir, I can communicate pretty well in front of my friends, but while giving mock tests, my brain goes blank. I think I get scared and nervous. Yeah, it's not just you. That happens to everybody. Most people would not perform as well in the test as they would outside the test. It's a pretty stressful environment. And like waiting in the exam hall with the other candidates, and everybody else looks stressed, and they're making you stressed, and it's the wait, and then finally after the waiting it happens, and then it's time to perform. Like there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of stakes, and the exam is expensive. So it's not just you. Everybody is nervous in the test. But somebody who got a band 8 in speaking, they didn't get a band 8 because they're not nervous. They got a band 8 because that's them still performing at not their best, or not performing at their best. So yeah, that's pretty normal. I think most students here would agree that they're the same. I'm sure there are exceptions. Some people are very confident. I think extroverts are at a better advantage than introverts because they naturally, they enjoy, and they're better at communicating anyway. But yeah, you have to do the best under those circumstances. It's pretty much the only question that I don't have a good answer for when it comes to IELTS, is like, how can I not be stressed in the test? I don't know. I've researched it, but I don't know a good way to not be stressed. I mean, I get stressed too. I don't know how to overcome stress. Being nervous, like if I'm doing a job interview or a high stakes interview or a test, I'm the exact same as everyone else. So I don't really have good advice, but what I can tell you is you're not alone. And what I say to some of my students is, like, expect to be stressed. If you say to yourself, I will pass the test if I'm not stressed, well, you're putting extra pressure on yourself then, because then when you feel stressed, you're like, oh no, I'm stressed, everything is going wrong. At least, have some bit of acceptance of you will be stressed. You just have to work under those conditions. There's nothing you can really do to be completely relaxed in the test. Hi, Eid. Good to see you again. From Kabul, Afghanistan. Welcome to the lesson, Eid. Always good to have you here. Rajan, you are way better than a lot of and almost every so-called IELTS teacher in North India. You deserve millions of subscribers and reach to millions. Why? I really respect you. Thank you, Rajan. That's nice to hear. Thank you so much. Which English level is enough before studying IELTS? It depends what score you're aiming for. Like, if you're aiming for a 6.5, you'd want to be upper intermediate. And then obviously the higher you go, the better you need to be. But it just depends. There's no strict level for doing the IELTS test, but you need to find out what score you need. So like, if you're applying to a university, find out what score they want so that you can aim for that score. Like, when students join my course, if they already have the language ability they need, they just fly through the course, do the test, and it's over. And then other students where, they need to improve their grammar and their pronunciation and their vocabulary, they might be on my course for, 6 months, 8 months, a year, because they have so much work to bring their English level up to the standard required for the score that they need. So, I mean, it just depends. It depends on what score you need. But, if you're willing to put in the work, so like when I have students joining my course, they're like, I want a band 7 tomorrow. Like, well, you can't join my course. I can't do that for you. I'm not magic. I wish I was. I think probably be very popular if I could get people a band 7 in one day when they have a low level. But then, like, I'll get some students, they're like, I want a band 7 in 2 weeks, but their English is already really good. Like, no problem. Let's go. I can do that for you. So, if you have enough time, if someone comes to me with a band 5, say, I have a year to prepare, that's no problem. So it's not so much what level is enough. It's what level are you, what score do you require, and how much time do you have to go from there to there. That's the real thing to consider, is, do you have enough time to improve? And there's no reason not to start studying IELTS because your level is low. The only reason would be if your test is very soon and you don't have enough time to improve. Beyond that, I wouldn't have any issues with people studying. So I have a problem with sentence structure. Hasnain, so start with the basics. Start with the basics. Just start with subject plus verb plus object. Understand that. And then just look at how those things are manipulated, like what happens next. So you can kind of reset it with a relative pronoun. So if you have subject plus verb, but now you need another subject, you're like, okay, relative pronoun plus subject plus verb plus object. Or, you know, subject plus verb plus object, comma, with a gerund. Okay, now you're explaining the result. So just start with the basics. Make sure you understand subject, verb, object, subject, verb, object, like how the basic components go together. And after that, you're just kind of manipulating those little things to kind of add extra information or to talk about the result or to add another clause. That I would recommend the Grammarly website. So if you search for like a sentence structures Grammarly blog, search for that online. Grammarly does a great job of just making it accessible, making it easy to understand. Like you have great websites like you know, the Cambridge Dictionary has a grammar section. It's fantastic, but in ways it's too detailed, so it's kind of hard to extract what you need from it. Whereas Grammarly has done a good job of just kind of keeping it basic, showing the basics, helping you to understand what you're looking at, and you can kind of take it from there yourself. So I would really recommend starting with Grammarly. And you need to do more reading. You need to read a lot in English so you can see other people doing it correctly and kind of, you know, match what you've learned from Grammarly or whatever grammar websites you like, and looking at it being used in reading and going like, okay, that's what they're doing there. And you can kind of compare the structures you see in a text with the structures that you've learned. And you know, really reading a lot to help you get a deeper understanding before you start using it. Like, you know, once you start using it later, after reading a lot, it's a lot easier because you've given yourself that chance to understand it on a deeper level. Okay. Sangresh, sir, thanks a lot. I improved my writing. You're very, very welcome. Just keep uploading videos like this. Absolutely, yeah. You're very welcome. No problem. No problem, Rajan. I didn't see any issue. At least didn't notice. Hi, Mandeep. Good evening to you. In academic reading texts are very complicated. So where I can find similar texts for reading, I suppose it would be like scientific journals, academic journals, the type of stuff that people would be reading in universities. So like research papers, academic journals, scientific journals, that type of thing. But you know, it depends on your level as well. You want to make sure you're not reading something that's way too difficult for you. If you start with something that's way too difficult, it's harder to improve because like you don't understand lots of stuff, so you're not able to fill in the pieces by yourself. You're not able to find which vocab you want to use. You'll just kind of feel lost. It's probably better to go with something more suitable, like more text that you can understand more easily, that will have some words you don't understand, but not a lot of words you don't understand. You're going to get more out of it when you understand most. If you understand everything, that's no good because you're not learning. But if you understand nothing, that's obviously not good either. So it's like, you know, understand most of what you read is kind of a good level to aim for. Hi, Chababix. Dear sir, I need tips for reading exam in general training test. So the question types are the exact same. The types of questions are the exact same for general and academic. So kind of like the advice would be very similar for both tests. Obviously, the texts are quite different. The texts are a bit easier, but you need to get more answers right anyway for that. I think the best thing I can do for you here, I have a link that I'll share with you. It's just a page on my website that just kind of goes through basically everything you need to know about reading in one page. It's quite a long page. You know, it'll probably take you about 20 minutes to read it, but it's more detailed than I can cover here. So you'll get through. You'll get everything you need there. So let me go reading I don't know if I'd call it reading tips. I've labeled it reading tips. It's probably like reading lesson, I think might be more accurate. But if you see that comment, so this is the most recent comment that I've just made here. Click on that link, and that's a very comprehensive guide through how to improve your reading scores. I think the basics, what most people don't do, which seems obvious after you hear someone say it, but what most people don't do is analyze their mistakes to see what are the reasons for their incorrect answers. So what you want to do is do one practice test. Look at all your incorrect answers and see, like, what did I do wrong? Oh, okay, I had the spelling wrong. You know, if you're getting all of your answers wrong or a lot of answers wrong because of spelling, then you need to improve your spelling. Or, you know, if you're getting a lot of answers wrong because you didn't follow the instructions of the questions, well, then, you know, you need to read the instructions more carefully, that type of thing. It might be the case that you're getting too many answers wrong because you don't understand the vocab. You might need to go and study vocab. But that there's more to the lesson that I just shared with you. In the link that I shared with you, it goes into more detail than that. But that's kind of the big thing that people tend not to do, is try to find your mistakes, reflect on your mistakes, figure out what you're doing wrong and fix them, and then do the next practice test. So that's a crucial step that a lot of people overlook. Mohammed, using more idioms in speaking is more handy to get better band. No, idioms, it's a misunderstanding. You shouldn't use idioms in the speaking test. You should just use normal vocab that people would normally use when speaking. Idioms are very outdated. Like raining cats and dogs. Like the only people I've ever heard say that are IELTS candidates. Like, you know, people don't normally use those phrases. They're outdated. The question, the band descriptors in speaking, they ask you to use, for a high vocab score, you're required to use idiomatic phrases. But idiomatic phrases are simple things like if you say something like, you know, I hang out with my friends. You know, what does the word hang mean? Like, you know, to hang your clothes up and out. How can you put those two words together and they mean like spend time relaxing with your friends? Like, you know, how did that happen? So nobody that understands the word hang and out would guess what hang out means without having learned that meaning separately. So like that type of thing, that's what we mean by idiomatic expressions. So that's what the examiner's looking for, not idioms like it's raining cats and dogs. That's not at all what's going to get a high score. So yeah, using slang, informal language, idiomatic phrases like phrasal verbs, that type of thing. Dear sir, I get 8 bands in academic reading, but not perfect 9. So help me, please. Yeah, so Mandeep, you'll still be looking at the same information I just shared in with Chavabix, this link down here. So I said reading tips, it'll be the same thing. So figuring out what you've done wrong. There's a strategy there as well that will help you kind of guide you through the process of how I recommend doing the test. But if you're getting a band 8 already, it's more likely figuring out why you're getting those answers wrong. Sir, if I get overall 5.75 after calculating it, so they will give you band 5.5. They round down. 5.75 goes down to 5.5. 6.25 goes down to 6. So it rounds down. How much you charge for 2 weeks preparation? My current score is 5.5. I'm aiming for 6.5 at least. I think it is achievable in 2 weeks. Yep, very likely achievable. Send me an email and we'll talk about it. My courses range between $199 and $799. And that just depends on how much one-on-one support you get. So like, you know, the students who I'm helping for a year versus the students I'm helping for 2 weeks, it's not necessarily I'm charging my students more if they're with me for longer. So it's not about how long you're with me. It's about how many corrections you need. So like how many speaking test correction, how many speaking tests, practice speaking tests do you want? How many essay corrections do you want? Like how much one-on-one support are you getting? So that's the difference between how the price of the courses. But send me an email. Like I said there, lar@completetestsuccess.com. Send me an email. 2 weeks to go from a 5.5 to a 6.5. It depends on it depends on the individual components, like what did you get for reading, writing, listening, speaking. I'd need to know a little bit more about that stuff. So, I mean, it might be possible in 2 weeks, but I'd need more information. So just send me an email and I will talk to you further about that. Mohammed, in listening part 3, I can't write correct answer because of listening and writing at the same time. Yeah, so it's about like managing your time properly. There are some question types where it's better to just kind of like read, like for example, multiple choice. You know, you have like a question and then you have 3 or 4 answers to choose from. Like, don't read those options yet. Just read the question, and as you're listening, make notes. So that way you can prepare yourself better because you're not reading the things you don't need to know yet. You're just reading the question so you know what information you need. As you're listening, then you're just making short notes. So you're not spending a lot of time reading while the audio is playing. And then what you do after the audio is finished, you look at your notes and then you look at the options and you go, okay, this was the note I made. Oh yeah, that's the correct answer. So you're instead of trying to do everything at the same time and you're trying to read and the audio is not waiting for you and the audio is gone, what you're doing is preparing yourself, making notes, choosing the correct answer after the audio. So just trying to break it down and into smaller tasks that are more manageable. Danish, hello, sir. I can't the big problem of the speech in every stage. Please, any advice? So if you're saying that you have a problem in speaking, we talked about this earlier on, but you can only focus on one thing at a time. So if you think you have a fluency problem, you need to fix that. If you think you have a vocab problem, you need to fix that. Same for grammar, same for pronunciation. But you're not going to fix all of them at the same time. You know, so choose the thing that you think, what is the biggest problem at the moment? Focus on that. Keep in mind, vocab is the area that takes the longest time to improve. So, you know, if you have enough time, if you have a lot of time before the test, if you have a few months before the test, definitely invest time in vocab straight away because it takes so long. If you don't have much time before the test, you know, maybe ignore vocab because you're not going to make significant improvements. And, you know, you shouldn't be trying to improve 4 areas of grammar at once. Like, choose one very, very specific area of grammar that you're having a problem with, make the necessary improvements, then you move on to the next. So just trying to focus on as small an area as possible, giving it your full attention until it's improved, then taking the next one. So, you know, like, it can be daunting, it can be overwhelming when you just see it's like, okay, I have like these like 100 things I need to do, but just break it down into smaller pieces and focus on one thing at a time. Dear sir, I attempted IELTS. I got 8 or 8.5, but not perfect 9. So I mentioned last week I wanted IELTS examiner, so please help. You know, like I said, it's about improving your English. It might be your English, the problem is with your English. It might be you're making mistakes with the questions. It might be that your development isn't appropriate. You know, like you're in the same situation as someone who's trying to get from a 6.5 to a 7. You know, it's figuring out what you did wrong. What are your weaknesses? What problems do you have? And then fixing them. So, you know, obviously the types of mistakes or the level of your language is going to be different from someone who's a 6.5, but the task in front of you is similar in that you need to find out, why are you not getting a 9? What's holding you back? Fixing that or those problems and allowing yourself to improve that way. So you absolutely need to get feedback on your work and find out, what are you doing wrong, what mistakes are you making, and make the necessary improvements on those. Hi, Ahmad. Excluding maps and process diagrams, I think writing task 1 is not mainly concerned with language, but rather with your ability to deal with numbers, percentages, and amounts. Also, what seems to be the main feature for me might seem a minor detail for the examiner. I think task 1 should be replaced with something else. What do you think? No, I have no problem with task 1. I have no problem with graphs. You know, it's an academic test. For most people, it's a test needed to go to university. If you don't understand a graph, it's probably a skill that you'll need anyway. You know, they have letters for people in general training saying, you know, it's not as important. So no, I don't personally have an issue with it. And then as well, you're saying like, what's the difference between a main feature and a minor detail? It wouldn't. It's, you know, I've been teaching IELTS long enough that you're not. I would never see it as in that way. Like you'd never sit down with another IELTS expert and disagree about what are the main features. You know, the longer you've been doing it, the clearer all of that becomes. There are some times where, you know, I might, if I'm describing a category, I might include 3 of the percentages and someone else might include 4. But, you know, there is room for your own, like how many points you think are important. And that depends on how much time you have as well. Like, you know, if there are many different percentages, you can't go into as much detail. Like, you need to be more brief in your descriptions. But no, I personally don't have a problem with the graphs at all. And to be honest, like the people that I help, like I've never been in a situation where people are going like, you know, no, you're wrong, it is important. And I'm saying, no, it isn't. Like, you know, like I've never had disagreements with students. Like, you know, we talk through it and everybody agrees on what is and what isn't important when it comes to describing graphs. So no, I've never really had any of those kind of scenarios where people are disagreeing on what's important or not. Oleg Beg, what kind of grammar mistakes native speakers do in speaking and writing sections? Because I want to know I'm not doing big mistakes. No, none. People, native speakers don't make grammar mistakes. There are some things that would be acceptable in areas like, you know, like parts of England, instead of saying I was sitting, they would say I was sat, which is wrong. But in that part of the world, that's just the way they use it. So there would be small things like that, depending on where a person is from, but it's still wrong. You know, it's still wrong. If they're in the speaking test, they wouldn't be using that incorrectly. That's more kind of like an informal, it's not slang, but it would be a colloquial way of speaking. But it doesn't mean it's right, you know. But there wouldn't be many like that. In general, it's just correct. And of course, there are slips where you make a mistake without noticing in both speaking and writing, and that's normal. Everyone makes mistakes by accident, just little slips that they didn't notice. But it's not consistently that everybody makes the same ones. It's just, you know, like they overlooked it when they were writing. So no, I wouldn't recommend continuing making any mistake. If you're making mistakes, I'd recommend fixing them. I'd recommend fixing any issues that you have. Hi, Ismail. Sir, I try my best, and every day I read 10 or 15 pages, listen to podcasts, and talk to myself. With all these things I've been doing every day, but my speaking skills are not improving. What should I really do? So if you're listening to podcasts every day, that would help with your listening, and it would help with reviewing vocab and grammar structures. If you're talking to yourself, that will improve your fluency. If you're reading every day, again, like listening, it'll improve your reading skills. It'll help you review vocab, and it'll help you review grammar structures and stuff like that. You'll get more familiar with what sounds right without having to think so deeply about the grammar rules. You know, you'll reinforce any collocations that you've learned and stuff like that. So that's all contributing. But if the problem is, you know, you need to learn vocab, you need to sit down, study it specifically. Like, what vocab? Do you have enough vocab? Do you have the vocab you need to study all to discuss all the various topics that might come up? What grammar mistakes are you making? Like, if you make grammar mistakes, you need to specifically focus on that, not just reading generally for pleasure, which is great. Like, reading for pleasure is great. It's one of the best ways to improve your English. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to do, but if you're trying to improve your grammar and you're not specifically focusing on the grammar problems that you have, it's unlikely that they'll improve. So you probably need to be more focused on what you're trying to improve. You are working on fluency by speaking to yourself, but you don't seem to be doing anything specifically to improve vocab, grammar, or pronunciation. The other thing then is, like, the improvements are so small. The improvements are so small that it's hard to notice them. So, like, if you see somebody every day, you don't notice them getting older. But if you haven't seen someone in 10 years, you notice, like, oh, wow, they look way older than what I remember them. So it's kind of like that as well. Like, the changes are slow and gradual, so it's very hard to notice them. So what can be helpful as well is, like, record yourself speaking, once a month. And what can be nice is, okay, listen to myself 6 months ago. You're like, oh, wow, yeah, I'm way better than I was 6 months ago. Whereas if you don't, like, make an effort to notice your changes, you just feel like, I'm the same. I'm still the same. So you could be improving and not noticing it. That might be another problem. So, trying to set goals that you notice when you've improved, or some way, like I said, like recording yourself so you can reflect on how much you have improved, because it's really difficult to notice without doing something specifically to compare yourself now versus 6 months ago. So yeah, and that's one of the things that's very difficult about learning English as well, is staying motivated when you think you're not improving. So you might have learned 100 words, but you're not counting how many you've learned. And it feels like, I'm the same as always. I'm not really improving. It's one of the difficult things about staying motivated, for sure, is it's very difficult to notice the improvements, without a doubt. Yeah. Haid, how to answer the questions of reading passage appropriately? Although I understand almost 89% of the vocab, with the result of answer will only be 50-60%. However, I'm eagerly focusing on scanning, skimming, context, clue, inferences, and understanding main ideas. To sum up, please, the kind advice. What shall I do? So I had originally, when I started teaching IELTS back in 2010, I was handed a book. I said, you're teaching IELTS now, off you go. So I taught exactly what you're talking about, like skimming, scanning, like all of those skills. I remember, like, got my students to do the practice reading test, and they're asking me what was the answer, and I was skimming and scanning. I'm useless at skimming and scanning. I'm so bad at it. So they're asking me what the answer was. I still hadn't found it myself. Very, very embarrassing. So I'm trying to find the answer. Can't find it. Skim, scan. I can't. I'm not good. I'm not good at those skills. I find them. I find they're not helpful, to be honest. So what I did was, instead of trying to skim and scan, so the idea with skim and scanning is you read question 1 and then you look at the full text to find it. And then you read question 2, you look at the full text again to try to find it. But I've gone the other way around. So I'll read paragraph 1 just normally, not skimming, not scanning, not super fast racing or anything. Just read it like you normally would. Just read the sentences. And then when I'm finished, I'll go through all the questions and I'll see which ones can I answer. So, like, I'm not going to remember every detail, but I'll know roughly what it was. And I go, oh yeah, there was something about that. And I go back and go, oh yeah, that's the answer. So basically I'm going through the questions many, many times, but I'm really only reading the text once. And I found that that's really, really helpful. It's not as confusing. It's easier to avoid making little mistakes where you miss, if you're skimming and scanning, you need to find the synonym of this word in the text, but you're not thinking about that word, so you miss it. And then, like, you're not going to find out. I just find it's easier to avoid those types of problems. You're very welcome. No problem at all. Happy to help. Hi, Taban. Good to see you here too. Thank you. Hi, Lewis. Dear sir, it seems that wordy phrases are preferred over concise ones in task 2. For example, make a decision versus decide. No, no, that's not the case. No. No. Make a decision wouldn't be considered better than just decide. That to me would just be the same piece of Lexis. So it doesn't really work like that. It would be the overall range within your full text. But like comparing decide versus make a decision, I don't think anyone would even notice that those are that if it was used incorrectly, I'd notice. But no, that's not how it works. Hi Sabor, good to see you here. Oleg Beg, sir, I have some problems in reading. I have not problems with vocabulary, but my score is not rising from 6.5. What is the main problem here? So this is what we were talking about before. Like different students will have different problems. And that's why you need to find out what problem you're having. Like why, like how many answers did you get wrong? You got 10 wrong. Why did you get the first one wrong? Figure that out. Not just generally like it was too difficult or, I couldn't find the answer, but specifically why not? Exactly as you can. Why not? Why not? Get as deep and understand it as deeply as you can. And once you understand the problem, then once you understand the problem specifically, then you'll know how to fix it. Is it a vocab? Is it that your vocab isn't good enough? Is it that you're trying to read too quickly? Is it that, you're not paying attention? Is it that you're skimming and scanning and you're not able to follow the text? Like what's happening? What's going wrong? Once you understand that, you'll know how to fix it. Once you understand the problems, the solution generally becomes quite obvious, to be honest. So, Preet, how to manage time and reading? Well, what I was just saying there a second ago to Eid, where you're going question by question rather than, where you're going paragraph by paragraph rather than question by question. What I found is that actually is much faster. For me, it was about 25% faster doing it that way. The other thing is focus on improving your scores first. So if you're currently at a 6.5 and you need an 8, don't worry about how long it takes. Just take as much time as you need. Take 2 hours to do the test if you need 2 hours, then find out what you did wrong and then fix it, and then find out what you did wrong and fix it, and continue that cycle until you get up to an 8. And once you're getting the score you need, then it's time to start working on doing it faster and doing it faster. So allow yourself as much time as you need to begin with. XIX. Is it essential to take notes in the listening test? Many, including myself, don't take notes during the test, but experts suggest that candidates should take notes. Well, there are question types where it's easier to take notes. Like I'd recommend taking notes for those long multiple choice question types, because it takes so long to choose the correct answer that if you're on question 1 trying to choose is it A, B, C, or D, the audio might have already moved on to question 4. So in that case, I'd recommend making a note so you don't need to read that. But there are other question types where, you can just write down the answer directly. So for me, it would depend on the question type. But as well, it depends on, is it helping you? I mean, if you don't need them, don't. If it's helping you, then do. Like the idea of just making notes because a teacher told you or because I told you or any expert told you, only if it's useful. Only if it's useful. If it's not helping you in any way, I definitely wouldn't recommend it. But there are, and you'll see in the lesson that I shared earlier on, there are areas where I do think it's beneficial, and for me, and I recommend other students do it. But if you try it and you go, but that's not helping me at all, this is just taking longer, well, then I would take it back and go, okay, for you, don't. But for me, it's better, and for other students, they should try it at least to see if it works for them. But no, I wouldn't say across the board everybody should make notes, even if it's not helping. It just depends on each person. How to deal with multiple choice questions in the reading module? I wouldn't really approach them any differently from other questions, to be honest. Again, I shared that lesson earlier on. Go through that. So in the comments, I made that. I shared that lesson. And let me see if I can find it for you again here. this one, I left a comment earlier on, said reading tips. So you'll find what you're looking for there for sure. But it wouldn't be very different from other question types, except keeping in mind that multiple choice questions come in the same order. So the answer to question one, as you're reading the text, the first answer you would find is the answer to question one. The second one you would find is the answer to question two. So they do come in order. But besides that, I wouldn't really have anything different. Sir, please tell me your fees I want to take in order to help to get perfect 9 bands. Yeah, like I said, Mandeep, my courses are between $199 and $799. And, obviously the one with 199 has the least feedback. The one with 799 has the most feedback, and there are, ranges in between. I have packages for people who don't need help with speaking. They only need help with, writing, reading, listening. And I have ones where there is no writing support. It's just for people who need speaking, reading, listening. So, they're depending on your situation, there are different packages, but it goes from 199 up to 799. Those are the ranges. But again, I just need to know more about what you need and what your requirements are. Like I said, send me an email, lar@completetestsuccess.com, and I'll be happy to talk to you about that, Mandeep. Azru, is 1 year enough for going from a 7 to an 8 in speaking, considering the fact that I can practice 30 minutes every day? 30 minutes every day isn't actually that much. 30 minutes a day isn't much. If you're trying to improve your fluency, vocab, grammar, and pronunciation, 30 minutes a day wouldn't be enough. I would say 2 or 3 hours a day maybe would be good. Yeah. Okay. Hi, Hanouk. Hello, sir. I got 5.5 in IELTS speaking, but my speaking exam was better than my result. What should I do? So a lot of it depends. Have you ever got a higher score before? Like, did you get a band 6 or 6.5 in a previous test, and kind of what the standard is because you've done it before and you've got a higher score? Or is this your first test and you're just a bit disappointed that you're expecting it to be higher? Did you have an IELTS teacher who has been an examiner or is an examiner who was able to analyze your speaking and tell you that you should expect a higher score? I wouldn't recommend doing an EOR because you're disappointed. I'd only recommend doing an EOR if you feel there is some valid reason why you would expect the score to be higher. So, if you have a good reason for thinking it should have been 6 or it should have been 6.5, you have solid evidence for that, then an EOR is a good idea. But if it's just disappointment, you thought you would have done better, but it's just your first test, and that could actually be your real score, then an EOR I wouldn't recommend going down that road. Dear sir, you taught many students who got 8.5, so please tell me your charges. So we talked about that already. Yeah, so just send me an email, Mandeep. You're very welcome, Ahmad. You're very welcome, Ahmad. No problem at all. I confer Lar's method of reading IELTS passages works really well because you got a 9 in reading. Confident using this method. Good. Yeah, a lot of people. I have had students who found that they don't like it. So it doesn't suit everybody, but most students would have improved their scores. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, XIX. Sir, it was astonishing advice and admiringly appreciated. Thank you, Eid. Lots of kind words today. Does writing without time limit is a good idea, Lar, or is it better to write under exam conditions, or should I be flexible, meaning do both? In the beginning, take as much time as you need. In the beginning, there are so many things you need to think of. I've been writing essays for so long, I don't even need to think about what structure to use. I see the question, just I know the structure. I don't even need to think about it. I've been writing them for so long, the ideas come to me faster because I've been doing it for so long. But when you're starting, you might need more time to come up with the ideas. You might need more time to make sure your ideas are appropriate. So in the beginning, it makes sense to give yourself more time. And the more you do it, the faster you get, the more comfortable you get. And, you know, as you get more comfortable with the process, and once you know you're capable of getting that target score, then work on the time and doing it faster. Ravshanbek, hi. Okay. Is it a big mistake to make out of topic in answer? If you go off topic, if your ideas, if we're talking about task 2, anywhere actually, if you're talking about IELTS writing task 2, if you're talking about speaking, if your answer doesn't relate to the question, that's bad for your score. Absolutely. The newspapers that I like, there are 2 newspapers that are designed for students, for people learning English. And what they've done is they write different versions of the same article. And then you can choose, like, you know, easy, medium, difficult. You can choose the level, which I really, really like, in that, you know, everyone can go in there and find one that's not too easy and find one that's not difficult. The first one is called News in Levels, and the second one is called Breaking News English. So News in Levels and Breaking News English. They're both the same idea, just news articles with different difficulty levels of the language being used. Yep. So those will be the 2, News in Levels and Breaking News English. XIX, my pleasure. You're very welcome. Lewis, sir, if I record myself and detect pauses and hesitations, what is the next step to improve? Practice speaking in English more often. So that, what you're talking about, is a fluency problem. So it's just about, the more you speak, the better your fluency gets, the easier it gets. It's pretty straightforward. Any fluency issues are solved by speaking in English more. And that's what you need to do. So yeah, that's a fluency problem. And that is also the last question. So we'll wrap it up there for today. Thank you all for all those questions. It's been a pleasure helping you. I'll be back next week. I have a live feedback lesson tomorrow, so click on that to join me for free on Zoom. The link is in the video description. And yeah, there's some of you asking for one-on-one support. That's my email there. And yeah, take care of yourselves. See you next time. Bye-bye.